Do you think it's better to be loved or feared? It sounds like a simple question, almost like something from a philosophy classroom or a political debate stage. But 500 years ago, one man answered this question with a boldness so shocking that his words still echo today. That man was Niccolò Machiavelli. And his answer was, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." This was not just a clever phrase. It was the essence of his masterpiece, The Prince, a book that dared to strip away illusions about politics and reveal the raw mechanics of power. Who was Machiavelli? Machiavelli was born in Florence in 1469, in the heart of the Italian Renaissance. Florence was a city of genius: Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Botticelli, all creating timeless works. But beneath this brilliance was a darker reality. Florence was unstable, ruled by powerful families like the Medici, constantly threatened by rival states, foreign armies, and betrayal from within. Machiavelli grew up watching power rise and collapse overnight. He saw allies become enemies, promises broken, and leaders destroyed not because they were weak, but because they misunderstood the game. By his late 20s, Machiavelli was serving as a diplomat for the Florentine Republic. He negotiated with kings, popes, and ruthless generals like Cesare Borgia. He witnessed firsthand how leaders ruled, how they lied, how they killed, and how they survived. These experiences shaped him more than any book could. While other philosophers dreamed of ideal republics and perfect justice, Machiavelli stared at the world as it was: brutal, unfair, and governed by ambition. The Prince, a book of survival. In 1512, everything changed. The Medici family returned to power. Machiavelli, who had served the Republic, was dismissed, accused of conspiracy, imprisoned, and tortured. Broken and exiled, he retreated to the countryside. There, stripped of position and reputation, he wrote the book that would make him infamous, The Prince. Unlike philosophers before him, who described how rulers should behave, Machiavelli wrote about how they must behave if they want to survive. He did not care about what was moral. He cared about what worked. And what worked, he argued, was often ugly. The central idea: power is not given, it is taken. At the heart of The Prince lies one brutal truth: power is never given. It is taken, held, and defended. Leaders cannot rely on love alone, because love is fragile. They cannot rely on morality alone, because the world is full of betrayal. They cannot rely on fortune alone, because chance is unpredictable. Instead, leaders must rely on their own strength, cunning, and ruthlessness when necessary. This is why Machiavelli declared it is better to be feared than loved. Fear endures. Love fades. Fear creates stability. Love invites betrayal. Historical example: Julius Caesar. Consider Julius Caesar. He was admired by many Romans, but what truly secured his power was not love, it was the fear inspired by his legions. His enemies might have loved Rome, but they feared Caesar more. And that fear gave him the power to cross the Rubicon and claim dictatorship. Love might win admiration, but fear wins obedience. Modern example: business leaders. This principle is not confined to history. Look at business leaders in our time. Steve Jobs was not universally loved by his employees. Many feared his temper, his criticism, and his relentless demands. But that fear drove Apple to achieve greatness, producing innovations that changed the world. A leader who seeks only to be loved may avoid conflict, soften criticism, and hesitate in decisions. But a leader who commands respect, sometimes through fear, gets results. Politics and fear. In politics, we see the same truth. Leaders who project only kindness are often admired, but not obeyed. Leaders who project strength, even at the cost of affection, endure. Machiavelli would remind us: people are fickle. Gratitude fades. But fear of consequences, losing a job, losing favor, facing punishment, keeps people in line. The mask of virtue. Now, Machiavelli did not tell leaders to be cruel for cruelty's sake. He actually warned against hatred, because hatred unites enemies. Instead, he advised rulers to appear virtuous, merciful, just, religious, while being ready to act ruthlessly when survival demands it. As he put it, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." This was the art of appearances. Wear the mask of goodness, but keep the blade hidden. Why his lesson still matters. 5 centuries later, human nature has not changed. In politics, alliances still break when interests shift. In business, trust still crumbles when money is at stake. In life, promises still collapse when tested by hardship. Machiavelli's insight is not outdated, it is eternal. Because he understood something most are too afraid to admit: people are selfish, fickle, and unreliable. The leader who accepts this truth survives. The leader who ignores it falls. Closing of Part 1. So as we begin this journey through Machiavelli's philosophy, remember his first and most shocking lesson. Power is not about being loved. Power is not about being good. Power is about survival. Love is fragile. Fear endures. And if you must choose, choose fear. In the next part, we'll dive into Machiavelli's world, Renaissance Florence, a city of brilliance and betrayal, where he learned the truths that shaped his philosophy. What kind of world creates a man like Machiavelli? Not a peaceful one. Not a world of trust and stability. But a world of ambition, betrayal, and constant danger. To understand Machiavelli's philosophy, we must step into his world, Renaissance Florence, a city of brilliance on the surface, but treachery underneath. Florence, the jewel of the Renaissance. In the late 1400s, Florence was the heart of the Renaissance. Its streets echoed with music, philosophy, and art. Michelangelo carved David. Leonardo da Vinci painted and designed machines centuries ahead of their time. Botticelli painted the birth of Venus. Florence dazzled Europe with its beauty. But beneath the marble domes and paintings, Florence was also a battlefield. Power shifted constantly. Wealthy families like the Medici and rival factions fought for control. Alliances were temporary. Promises were broken. At any moment, a leader could be overthrown, exiled, or executed. This was the world Machiavelli grew up in. A world that taught him early: appearances deceive, and power is never secure. Machiavelli the diplomat. In 1498, when he was only 29, Machiavelli entered government service in Florence. He became a diplomat, representing the Republic of Florence in foreign courts. This role brought him face to face with the most powerful men of his age: kings of France, popes in Rome, ruthless generals like Cesare Borgia. Unlike philosophers who studied ideas in books, Machiavelli studied power in the real world. He watched alliances form and collapse. He saw leaders promise peace while secretly planning war. He saw betrayal rewarded and kindness punished. These experiences would become the foundation of The Prince. Cesare Borgia, the living example. Among all the leaders Machiavelli observed, one stood out: Cesare Borgia, the son of Pope Alexander VI. Borgia was ruthless, ambitious, and bold. He used deception, charm, and force in perfect balance. When he took control of the region of Romagna, he crushed chaos with decisive cruelty. Once stability was restored, he turned on his own lieutenant, executing him publicly to win the people's loyalty. Machiavelli admired Borgia deeply. In The Prince, he called him the perfect example of how a ruler should act: decisive, cunning, and unafraid of cruelty when necessary. Though Borgia eventually fell when fortune turned against him, Machiavelli believed his methods were brilliant. The fall of Florence. But Florence itself was not safe. In 1512, the Medici family regained power in the city. Machiavelli, who had served the Republic, suddenly found himself on the wrong side. He was accused of conspiracy, imprisoned, tortured, and finally exiled. One day, he was a respected diplomat. The next, he was a broken man, cast out from politics. For many, this would have been the end. But for Machiavelli, it was the beginning of his most enduring work: the birth of the Prince. In exile, Machiavelli began to write. By day, he worked on his farm. But by night, he put on his old robes of state, entered his study, and wrote as if he were still advising kings and princes. Out of this period of exile came The Prince, a book that distilled everything he had learned from Florence, from Borgia, from the betrayals and battles he had witnessed. He dedicated the book to the Medici, hoping to regain favor. But instead, the book gave him infamy. It was too raw, too real, too honest. It stripped away the illusions of morality, and showed the brutal truth of power. Florence as a lesson. For Machiavelli, Florence was not just his home, it was a lesson. It taught him that art and beauty mean nothing without strength. It showed him that laws are powerless without force. It proved that leaders who cling to morality without strategy are destroyed. Florence was both brilliant and fragile. And Machiavelli learned that survival requires more than ideals. It requires cunning, boldness, and fear. Modern parallels. You might think Renaissance Florence is far from our world today. But in truth, nothing has changed. In politics, parties form alliances and break them when convenient. In business, partnerships collapse the moment profit disappears. In everyday life, appearances of loyalty often hide ambition. Florence lives on in every boardroom, every government, every arena of power. The reputation of Machiavelli. Because of what he wrote, Machiavelli was condemned for centuries. His name became an insult, Machiavellian, meaning cunning, ruthless, manipulative. But this is a misunderstanding. Machiavelli was not teaching evil for its own sake. He was describing reality. He wanted Italy, and Florence, to survive in a brutal age. His realism was shocking, but it was not false. Closing of Part 2. So what have we learned? Machiavelli was shaped by Florence, a city of brilliance on the outside, betrayal on the inside. He saw that power was fragile, alliances temporary, and survival required more than goodness. In exile, he transformed these lessons into The Prince, a playbook of power that still shocks us today. In the next part, we'll explore one of his harshest insights: human nature. Why people cannot be trusted, and why loyalty is far weaker than we like to believe. What do you believe about people? Are they naturally good? Are they trustworthy? Do loyalty, gratitude, and friendship truly last? Machiavelli had a darker answer. He believed that human nature is selfish, fickle, and unreliable. And if a leader forgets this, they will be destroyed. Machiavelli's harsh view. In The Prince, Machiavelli wrote, "Men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, and covetous." He wasn't trying to insult humanity. He was trying to warn leaders. People love you when times are good. They abandon you when times are bad. They promise loyalty, but when it conflicts with their interests, they break it. This wasn't cynicism, it was observation. Machiavelli had seen it with his own eyes in Florence, in diplomacy, and in war. The fragility of loyalty. Consider loyalty. We like to think it is eternal. But Machiavelli argued it is only as strong as self-interest. Soldiers stay loyal while they are paid. Citizens cheer for leaders while they feel secure. Friends support you while they benefit from the relationship. But when hardship comes? When resources run dry? When danger rises? Loyalty disappears. Machiavelli's warning: never build power on trust alone. Historical example: the Italian Wars. During Machiavelli's time, Italy was constantly invaded by France, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire. Italian states often allied together for defense. But the moment fortune shifted, those alliances broke. Promises were abandoned, treaties ignored. Each city acted in its own interest. And Machiavelli saw firsthand how deadly it was to rely on loyalty. Modern example: business and politics. The same principle applies today. In business, partners celebrate success together, but when money disappears, lawsuits begin. In politics, allies support each other until public opinion changes, then betrayal comes swiftly. As Machiavelli said, gratitude is short-lived. Trusting appearances. Machiavelli also warned against trusting appearances. People may appear loyal, honest, and kind. But appearances are masks. Behind the mask, self-interest drives action. Behind the smile, ambition waits. This is why he urged rulers to judge actions, not words. To look at results, not promises. The nature of fear versus love. This is where Machiavelli connected human nature with his most famous lesson: love versus fear. Love depends on trust, gratitude, and loyalty. But these are fragile. Fear depends on consequences. And consequences are lasting. People may break promises of love. But fear of punishment, of losing status, of suffering consequences, that endures. This is why he argued it is safer to be feared than loved. Because human nature bends when interests change, but fear does not. Pop culture example: Game of Thrones. We see this lesson everywhere in stories. In Game of Thrones, alliances are constantly betrayed. Vows of loyalty vanish the moment power shifts. Ned Stark trusted human nature. He trusted honor. And it cost him his life. Tywin Lannister understood Machiavelli's truth. He ruled through fear, not trust. And he survived far longer. Audiences instinctively recognize Machiavelli's point: human nature cannot be relied upon. Everyday life lessons. So what does this mean for us? In personal relationships, trust is valuable, but blind trust is dangerous. In business, contracts and systems are more reliable than promises. In leadership, build loyalty where possible, but always prepare for betrayal. Machiavelli's advice is not to abandon trust entirely, but to be realistic. Trust people, but verify. Expect loyalty, but prepare for disloyalty. The balance of hope and realism. Machiavelli's view may sound cold, but his purpose was survival. Leaders who believe people are always loyal are blindsided by betrayal. Leaders who understand human nature are never surprised. By expecting selfishness, they can build systems that work even when loyalty fails. Closing of Part 3. So what have we learned? Machiavelli's third lesson is brutal but vital: human nature cannot be trusted. People are selfish, ungrateful, and fickle. Gratitude fades. Loyalty breaks. Appearances deceive. The wise leader does not despair at this truth. They accept it, plan for it, and survive because of it. In the next part, we'll explore how this connects to another timeless principle: the power of appearances. Why image often matters more than reality. Imagine two leaders. The first is wise, capable, and honest, but he appears weak, hesitant, and uncertain. The second is corrupt, selfish, and cruel, but he appears strong, confident, and decisive. Which one do people follow? Machiavelli's answer is clear: the second. Because in politics, business, and life, appearance often matters more than reality. Machiavelli's insight. In The Prince, Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few know what you really are." Most people cannot see into your heart. They cannot know your true intentions. They only see what you show them. That's why leaders must master appearances. It is not enough to be good, you must appear good. It is not enough to be strong, you must appear strong. The mask of virtue. Machiavelli argued that rulers should appear merciful, faithful, humane, religious, and just, even if behind the mask they are ruthless, cunning, and strategic. The appearance of virtue keeps people calm and loyal. But the reality of ruthlessness allows survival when danger comes. This is not hypocrisy. This is survival. Historical example: the Medici. The Medici family of Florence understood this perfectly. They appeared as generous patrons of the arts, sponsoring painters, architects, and scholars. Their image was pious and noble. But behind the mask, they manipulated politics, bribed officials, and eliminated rivals. Their power lasted because they mastered appearances while practicing ruthless strategy. Modern politics example. Look at politics today. Campaigns are built on image. A smile, a handshake, a photo opportunity. These appearances often matter more than policy details. A candidate who appears confident, trustworthy, and strong wins votes, even if reality tells a different story. Machiavelli would nod: the image is more powerful than the truth. Business example: corporate reputation. The same is true in business. Many companies market themselves as ethical, sustainable, and socially responsible. Yet behind closed doors, they cut corners, exploit workers, or harm the environment. Their reality may be ugly, but their image protects them. Investors, customers, and the public judge by appearances, not hidden truths. Pop culture example: Game of Thrones. In Game of Thrones, this principle is everywhere. Ned Stark was honest and good, but he failed to manage appearances. He looked weak, and he paid with his life. Meanwhile, Littlefinger and Cersei Lannister mastered appearances. They projected loyalty and virtue while plotting treachery. They survived far longer. Audiences instinctively understand Machiavelli's truth: appearances rule. The double-edged sword. But appearances are dangerous too. If the mask cracks and people see the ugly reality, the fall can be catastrophic. That's why Machiavelli advised rulers to balance both: maintain the mask of virtue, but never forget the ruthless reality behind it. Appear good, act when necessary. Appear merciful, strike when required. Everyday life lessons. So what does this mean for us? At work, competence matters, but the appearance of competence matters more. Speak with confidence. Present yourself with authority. In relationships, people judge by what they see, not what they don't. Protect your reputation. In society, reputation is currency. Guard it carefully, because once it's gone, reality alone will not save you. The Machiavellian balance. Machiavelli is not telling us to lie endlessly. He is telling us to be strategic. To understand that people judge by appearances. To wear the right mask when needed. Because those who ignore appearances will be crushed by those who master them. Closing of Part 4. So what have we learned? Machiavelli's lesson is simple but powerful: appearances often matter more than reality. Everyone sees what you show them. Few know who you truly are. The wise leader wears the mask of virtue, but keeps the strength of ruthlessness behind it. In the next part, we'll explore another harsh truth: morality versus power. Why good men fail, and why survival sometimes requires doing what is wrong. We like to believe that good people win. That honesty, kindness, and morality lead to success. But history tells a darker story. Time and again, the most virtuous leaders fall, while the ruthless survive. Machiavelli explained why. A man who wishes to act entirely up to his professions of virtue soon meets with what destroys him among so much that is evil. In other words, good men fail because the world is not good. Machiavelli's realism. Before Machiavelli, philosophers wrote about how rulers should behave. They spoke of justice, honor, and virtue. Machiavelli broke from this tradition. He argued that leaders must deal with the world as it is, not as it should be. If everyone else is ruthless and cunning, then a leader who is purely moral will be destroyed. Morality is valuable, but only when it helps survival. The limits of morality. Machiavelli did not say leaders should abandon virtue completely. But he warned that relying only on morality is dangerous. A leader who is too merciful allows chaos to spread. A leader who keeps every promise becomes predictable and weak. A leader who refuses to deceive will be deceived. Morality must be balanced with pragmatism. Historical example: Savonarola. Florence once followed a preacher named Girolamo Savonarola. He was deeply moral, demanding purity, honesty, and faith. For a short time, the people adored him. But Savonarola refused compromise. He ignored political reality. Soon, his enemies struck back. He was overthrown, excommunicated, and executed. To Machiavelli, this proved his point: good intentions alone cannot protect a leader. Modern politics example. In politics today, we see the same truth. Idealistic candidates often lose to ruthless strategists. Those who cling to doing the right thing without compromise are crushed by opponents willing to bend the rules. Voters admire honesty, but they follow strength. Machiavelli would say, morality without power is weakness. Business example. In business, many startups begin with noble missions: fairness, ethics, helping society. But without strategy, they fail. Meanwhile, companies led by harsh, pragmatic CEOs often thrive. Steve Jobs, for example, was not loved for his kindness. He was feared for his demands. Yet his ruthlessness built Apple into a global empire. Morality without results is forgotten. Strategy creates survival. Military example. The same applies in war. Leaders who hesitate out of morality often lose. But those who make hard, even ruthless decisions, can win and save more lives in the long run. General Sherman's harsh campaign in the American Civil War was criticized as cruel. But it shortened the war and saved thousands of lives. Cruelty, in this case, was more merciful than endless mercy. Machiavelli's advice. So what should a leader do? Machiavelli's advice was clear. Appear virtuous, but be ready to act against virtue. Use morality when it strengthens you. Abandon it when it threatens survival. As he wrote, "It is well to appear merciful, faithful, humane, sincere, religious, but you must have the mind so disposed that when it is necessary not to be so, you may know how to change to the contrary." Everyday life lessons. This lesson is not only for rulers. At work, honesty is good, but don't let it make you vulnerable. In relationships, kindness matters, but boundaries are necessary. In life, ideals inspire, but strategy protects. Machiavelli does not tell us to be evil. He tells us to be realistic. The tragedy of good men. The tragedy is that good men often fail because they refuse to adapt. They cling to ideals while others play the real game. Great leaders, however, balance morality and pragmatism. They know when to act with virtue, and when to act with ruthlessness. Closing of Part 5. So what have we learned? Machiavelli shattered the illusion that morality guarantees success. He showed that good men fail when they refuse to play the real game. Morality is useful, but survival comes first. In the next part, we'll explore Machiavelli's views on fortune and boldness. How much of life depends on luck, and how much depends on the courage to seize opportunity. Do you believe in luck? Some say life is all chance. Others say success comes only from hard work. Machiavelli offered a sharper answer. Fortune controls half of our lives, but the other half is shaped by our own boldness. And fortune, he said, favors those who dare to act. Machiavelli's River of Fortune. Machiavelli compared fortune to a river. When calm, it can be guided and controlled. But when it floods, it sweeps away everything in its path. The wise leader builds dams and barriers in advance, preparing for when fortune changes. The lesson: you cannot stop fortune, but you can prepare for it. Fortune as a woman. Machiavelli also wrote, "Fortune is a woman, and if you wish to master her, you must conquer her by force." It was a metaphor of his time. Fortune rewards the bold, the aggressive, the decisive. Those who hesitate lose their chance. Those who act boldly seize opportunity. Historical example: Julius Caesar. When Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon, he gambled everything. Many would have hesitated. Caesar acted. That boldness made him master of Rome. Fortune gave him the chance. Boldness turned it into destiny. Modern business example. In the business world, boldness separates leaders from dreamers. Jeff Bezos saw the rise of the internet in the 1990s. Many ignored it. Bezos acted boldly and built Amazon. Elon Musk risked everything on Tesla and SpaceX. Fortune opened the door, but boldness made them succeed. Sports example. In sports, boldness defines champions. Michael Jordan didn't hesitate to take the last shot. Tom Brady seized the chance when injury gave him his first start, and turned it into a legendary career. Fortune opened the door. Boldness walked through it. The danger of hesitation. Machiavelli warned that hesitation is worse than failure. It is better to act and repent than not to act and regret. Opportunities pass quickly. Waiting for the perfect moment often means missing it forever. Preparation plus boldness. But boldness alone is not enough. Like building dams before a flood, preparation is essential. Save resources for hard times. Train skills before the opportunity comes. Build alliances before crisis strikes. When fortune turns, the unprepared drown. The prepared survive. Everyday life lessons. For us, the lesson is clear. Don't wait endlessly. Take bold action when opportunity appears. But prepare in advance, so that when luck changes, you are ready. Remember, fortune helps the daring, not the timid. Machiavelli's balance. Machiavelli believed fortune controlled half of human life. But the other half, our preparation and boldness, was in our hands. The timid are crushed by fortune. The bold master her. Closing of Part 6. So what have we learned? Machiavelli teaches us that life is half chance, half choice. Fortune is unpredictable, but boldness and preparation let us control it. Fortune favors the daring, not the timid. And survival belongs to those who act. In the next part, we'll explore one of Machiavelli's most shocking lessons: cruelty and mercy. Why harshness, if used wisely, can save more lives than endless kindness. We are taught that mercy is noble and cruelty is evil. But Machiavelli shocked the world by saying the opposite can be true. He argued that cruelty, when used wisely and sparingly, can save more lives than endless mercy. It is one of his most disturbing but practical lessons about power. Machiavelli's principle. In The Prince, he wrote, "Well-used cruelty, if one may call evil good, can be justified when it is employed once for all, and is necessary for security." The meaning: a decisive act of cruelty can restore order, while endless mercy allows chaos, rebellion, and greater suffering. Historical example: Cesare Borgia. When Cesare Borgia took control of Romagna, the region was lawless. He appointed a harsh lieutenant, Ramiro de Orco, to crush disorder. De Orco used brutal measures: executions, punishments, terror. Once order was restored, Borgia executed de Orco in public, showing that cruelty had limits. The result: peace and stability. Machiavelli praised this as an example of cruelty that served the greater good. American example: Abraham Lincoln and the Civil War. Even Abraham Lincoln, remembered as compassionate, understood this lesson. He allowed General Sherman to march through the South, destroying infrastructure. It was harsh, even cruel. But it broke the Confederacy's will, ending the war sooner and saving thousands of lives. Mercy would have prolonged suffering. Cruelty ended it faster. Corporate example. In business, CEOs sometimes must make harsh choices. Laying off workers seems cruel. But avoiding it out of mercy may bankrupt the company, destroying all jobs. Cruelty, when decisive, can preserve survival. Mercy without limits leads to ruin. Pop culture example: The Godfather. In The Godfather, Don Vito Corleone understood this balance. He appeared merciful and generous. But when betrayal threatened, he acted ruthlessly. As Michael Corleone later explained, "It's not personal. It's strictly business." Cruelty, when necessary, protected the family and ensured order. The danger of excessive cruelty. But Machiavelli warned, cruelty must never be constant. Endless cruelty creates hatred. Hatred unites enemies. And hatred is deadly for rulers. Cruelty must be rare, swift, justified, followed by stability. The tyrant who is cruel without reason will fall. The fragility of mercy. On the other hand, mercy without strength invites disaster. A leader who forgives every betrayal encourages more betrayal. A commander who spares rebels endlessly may face constant revolt. Mercy feels noble, but if it undermines order, it creates more harm than good. Everyday life lessons. This lesson applies beyond politics. At work, managers who never discipline weaken the whole team. In family, parents who never set limits raise children without respect. In life, forgiving toxic people repeatedly lets them keep hurting you. Sometimes the most merciful act is a decisive boundary. Sports example. Great coaches often appear cruel. They push athletes beyond comfort, demand perfection, and cut weak performers. It seems harsh, but it forges champions. Mercy without toughness produces mediocrity. The Machiavellian balance. The art is in balance. Use mercy to inspire loyalty. Use cruelty sparingly to restore order. Above all, avoid hatred. This is the paradox. Sometimes cruelty is mercy, and mercy is cruelty. Closing of Part 7. So what have we learned? Machiavelli showed that cruelty and mercy are not opposites, but tools. Cruelty, when used sparingly, can create peace. Mercy, when unlimited, can create chaos. The wise leader knows when to be merciful, and when to be harsh. In the next part, we'll explore another foundation of Machiavelli's philosophy: arms and laws. Why justice means nothing without the strength to enforce it. What keeps a nation alive, laws or weapons? We often believe that justice, constitutions, and agreements protect us. But Machiavelli gave a harsher answer. The main foundations of all states are good laws and good arms. And because there cannot be good laws without good arms, it is arms that make good laws possible. In other words, laws are powerless without the strength to enforce them. Machiavelli's principle. For Machiavelli, laws are important, but fragile. A law is only as strong as the power behind it. A contract without enforcement is paper. A constitution without strength is decoration. That's why rulers must always prepare for war. Peace is temporary. Force is permanent. Florence's mistake. Machiavelli saw this lesson in his own city. Florence relied on mercenaries, soldiers for hire. But mercenaries had no loyalty. They deserted in danger, betrayed their employers, or switched sides for more money. Florence had wealth, culture, and laws, but no reliable arms. And so, Florence was weak. Machiavelli concluded, a state that cannot defend itself cannot survive. Historical example, Rome. Rome became great not only because of its laws, but because of its legions. The Republic had justice, but it was the army that gave those laws force. Without soldiers, Rome's laws would have been ignored. Good arms built good laws. American example, George Washington. The same was true for the United States. The Declaration of Independence was powerful words. But without George Washington's army, those words would have been meaningless. Military strength turned ideals into reality. Modern example, the U.S. military. Even today, the United States maintains one of the most powerful militaries in the world. Why? Because leaders know that diplomacy and law only work when backed by strength. Nations with weak arms may speak of justice, but their words carry little weight. Nations with strong arms shape the world. Machiavelli on mercenaries. Machiavelli especially despised mercenaries. He called them disloyal, cowardly, dangerous. A prince who relies on mercenaries is doomed. Instead, rulers need their own citizens, trained, disciplined, and loyal. True security comes from within, not from outsiders. Business parallel. The same idea applies in business. A company that outsources all of its strength, innovation, leadership, culture, cannot survive. Just as a state needs its own arms, a company needs its own foundation of talent and resources. Outsourcing everything is like hiring mercenaries. It works until crisis comes. Sports parallel. In sports, playbooks are like laws. But the athletes are the arms. A brilliant strategy means nothing without players strong enough to execute it. Champions are made not by rules, but by performance. The fragility of laws without arms. History proves Machiavelli's point. After World War I, the League of Nations promised peace. But it had no force to back its rules. When aggressors rose, it collapsed. Good laws without good arms are illusions. The balance of arms and laws. But Machiavelli was not glorifying force alone. He insisted on balance. Arms without laws create tyranny. Laws without arms create weakness. Only together, laws to guide, arms to enforce, can a state endure. Everyday life lessons. What does this mean for us? In business, contracts mean little without the ability to enforce them. In life, promises are empty without the strength to uphold them. In society, justice requires consequences, or injustice will rule. Force is not always violence. It can mean influence, resources, or discipline. But Machiavelli's point is clear: without strength, ideals collapse. Closing of Part 8. So what have we learned? Machiavelli revealed that laws and justice are not enough. Without arms, without power, they are fragile illusions. The wise leader builds both: laws to inspire, arms to protect. In the next part, we'll confront one of Machiavelli's most famous and feared lessons: love versus fear. Because, as he wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." Would you rather be loved or feared? It's a question every leader faces. Parents, teachers, CEOs, presidents, everyone who holds authority eventually wonders, which is stronger? Machiavelli gave the world his most famous answer: "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." Why love fails? Machiavelli argued that love is fragile. People love you when you provide benefits. They admire you when times are good. But when hardship comes, love fades. Gratitude is short-lived. Admiration quickly turns into resentment. A leader who depends on love will find it vanishes the moment interests change. Why fear endures? Fear, however, is more reliable. When people fear the consequences of betrayal, they are less likely to betray. Fear creates stability. Fear keeps people obedient even in difficult times. Machiavelli was not encouraging cruelty for its own sake. He warned against hatred. But he argued that fear without hatred is a safer foundation than love. The danger of hatred. Machiavelli made an important distinction. Fear is safe. Hatred is deadly. A ruler who is merely feared can endure. But a ruler who is hated will fall, because hatred unites enemies. That is why cruelty must be controlled, and justice visible. A leader must be respected and feared, but never despised. Historical example: Roman emperors. Roman history is filled with examples. Emperors who sought only love, by being generous, merciful, indulgent, were quickly betrayed. Their popularity could not save them. Augustus, however, balanced love and fear. He projected mercy, but commanded respect through discipline and force. His empire endured. Modern politics example. In modern politics, leaders who try to please everyone often fail. They may be loved briefly, but without strength they lose control. Meanwhile, leaders who project authority, even if controversial, often endure longer. They may not be loved by all, but they are respected by many and feared by rivals. Machiavelli would remind us: popularity fades. Fear lasts. Business example: CEOs. The same lesson applies in business. Steve Jobs was not loved for his kindness. Many employees feared his demands. But that fear drove excellence and turned Apple into one of the most powerful companies in the world. Leaders who seek only love often avoid hard choices. They hesitate to discipline, afraid of losing affection. In the end, they lose respect, and with it, power. Pop culture example: Game of Thrones. In Game of Thrones, Ned Stark was loved for his honor, but he lacked the ability to inspire fear. He trusted too much, appeared too soft, and paid with his life. Tywin Lannister, however, was feared. His rule was harsh, but stable. He lasted far longer than those who relied on love. Audiences instinctively understand Machiavelli's point: love is fragile, fear endures. Everyday life lessons. So what does this mean for us? In leadership, aim for respect more than affection. Respect often carries a degree of fear. In personal life, kindness is good, but without boundaries, it invites exploitation. In society, admiration fades quickly, but strength commands lasting attention. Machiavelli does not say abandon love completely. The ideal is to be both loved and feared. But when forced to choose, fear is safer. The Machiavellian balance. The key is balance. Use love when it inspires loyalty. Use fear when it ensures stability. Avoid hatred at all costs. This balance creates respect, a mixture of admiration and caution. Closing of Part 9. So what have we learned? Machiavelli revealed that love is fragile, while fear is stable. People may abandon a leader they love, but they hesitate to betray a leader they fear. The wise leader avoids hatred, but accepts fear as a foundation of power. In the final part, we will bring everything together: human nature, appearances, morality, fortune, cruelty, arms, and fear, into Machiavelli's ultimate conclusion. Power is never given. It is taken. 500 years ago, Niccolò Machiavelli dared to write down the truths that others feared to say out loud. His book, The Prince, shattered illusions. It told rulers not what they should do, but what they must do to survive. And its central lesson was simple, shocking, and eternal. Power is never given. It is taken. A journey through 10 lessons. Across this series, we've walked through Machiavelli's world and his wisdom. In Part 1, we asked, is it better to be loved or feared? Machiavelli answered, fear is safer. In Part 2, we entered Florence, a city of art and betrayal, where Machiavelli saw power in action. In Part 3, we faced his harsh view of human nature: selfish, fickle, untrustworthy. In Part 4, we saw the power of appearances, why image often beats reality. In Part 5, we learned why morality alone destroys leaders. In Part 6, we discovered that fortune favors the bold. In Part 7, we confronted cruelty and mercy, why harshness can sometimes save more lives than kindness. In Part 8, we saw that laws mean nothing without arms to enforce them. In Part 9, we tackled the eternal question of love versus fear, and why fear endures longer. Now, in this conclusion, we bring these lessons together into one ultimate playbook of power: Machiavelli's realism. Machiavelli did not describe the world as we wish it to be. He described it as it is. A world where people betray when it benefits them. Fortune rises and falls without warning. Appearance matters more than reality. Morality collapses when tested by survival. This realism is what makes his work timeless. Human nature has not changed since Machiavelli's day, and likely never will. Why he still matters? Think about it. In politics, leaders still balance love and fear. In business, CEOs still act boldly when fortune appears. In war, generals still weigh cruelty and mercy. In everyday life, appearances still shape how people judge us. The Renaissance may be over, but Machiavelli's playbook is still open. His misunderstood reputation. For centuries, Machiavellian has been an insult. It means cunning, ruthless, manipulative. But Machiavelli himself was not a monster. He was a realist. He wanted Florence to survive. He wanted Italy to stand strong. He told rulers the truth others would not, that ideals alone cannot protect power. He forced us to confront a hard reality. If you want to endure, you must accept the world as it is, not as you dream it to be. The core truth. So what is Machiavelli's ultimate lesson? That survival comes before morality. That power requires boldness. That fear is safer than love. That appearances shape reality. That fortune rewards the daring. That cruelty, when used sparingly, can save lives. That laws mean nothing without strength to enforce them. All of these lessons lead to one truth. Power is never given. It is taken. The modern challenge. Today, we live in a world Machiavelli would recognize. Politicians rise and fall on image, not reality. Businesses survive by boldness, not ideals. Nations are judged not by their words, but by their strength. And in our personal lives, the same lessons apply. If you want respect, set boundaries. If you want survival, prepare for betrayal. If you want success, act boldly when fortune calls. Machiavelli's wisdom is not just for princes, it is for anyone navigating power. The call to action. So what should we do with these lessons? We must stop waiting for the world to reward goodness alone. We must accept that survival demands strategy. We must learn to master appearances, to act boldly, to balance mercy with firmness, to be respected, even feared, without becoming hated. Machiavelli does not tell us to abandon virtue. He tells us to use it wisely, strategically, realistically. Because the game of power is always being played, whether we join it or not. Closing message. Machiavelli's playbook is not comfortable. It is not pretty. But it is true. And truth, no matter how harsh, gives us power. So remember this. The world has not changed. Human nature has not changed. And as long as ambition, rivalry, and survival exist, Machiavelli's philosophy will remain eternal. Final CTA. Backhand index pointing right. If this series opened your eyes, then don't stop here. Subscribe to Philosophy of Power. Like this video to spread Machiavelli's wisdom. Share it with those who still believe power is only about kindness. Because knowledge is power. And Machiavelli's knowledge is the first step to mastering it.